Hey, welcome to the Heart of Atlanta on the WCEG Network. You can find WCEG Talk Radio everywhere: LinkedIn, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook. I want to just let you know that all opinions held today are of my own, not of the WCEG platform. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be here. You can find me on social media everywhere, also at Travis Hall Music, everywhere. That's Travis, Hall Music. So I'm very grateful to be here today, having the Heart of Atlanta debut on the WCEG network. Here, we're going to get a few things, right? So things that are important to me. So that'll be music, and that'll be the journey. I'm very interested in the journey of the human experience, people's spiritual journey, how that manifests in what they do, the journey of passions, the journey of self-development. So first, I'm going to tell you what we're going to cover over this half hour to hour. We're going to cover Mariah Carey's tribute at Music Hairs. If you didn't know, this weekend is Grammy weekend. Everyone's in LA celebrating without me. I'm still in Atlanta in the cold. And then we're going to get a little bit into my journey. And then on future shows, we'll be delving more into my journey and more into the journey of the guests that I have on the show. So, if you did not know, last night was the Music Hair's celebration of Mariah Carey, one of my favorite artists, amazing producer, songwriter, and vocalist in her own right. So last night we had some performances by Teddy Swims, Billy Porter, Jennifer Hudson, and the standouts to me were Maggie Rogers, who performed Honey, and Charlie Puth, who performed I Still Believe. And I Still Believe, as some of us may know, is a cover from Brenda K. Starr that Mariah Carey did in around 1999, 1998. Even though I don't know these artists, they're my favorites. I'm glad that they got some powerhouse vocalists on the show, especially Shantae Moore, but I felt that some of the arrangements were lacking. I love the performances, but I wish we would have had other artists such as Leona Lewis on the show, or Shantae Moore, who was just there to kind of sing a cameo role in I Know What You Want. Should have had a solo. I would have loved to see more from Shantae Moore. I would have loved to see Toni Braxton or some of the great Celine Dion. Would have been there Patti LaBelle, who's honored Mariah Carey in the past. I just needed more. Wonderful show, wonderful celebration, but I just wanted more vocalists, more female singers, Tori Kelly, who could really just sell the Mariah Carey songs. So, in terms of journey, my journey has been a little bit of everywhere. You may not know that I'm a professional opera singer, and most recently a soul R&B artist, as of a few years ago. I originally wanted to be an R&B singer when I was younger. I went to school, no one in my family does music, and I was always the odd guy out, kind of sort of in my singing. I was never people's favorite singer. I was never pushed to the front. And so when I ended up in high school, I had a choir teacher who told me that I shouldn't sing, that this wasn't for me, that there were better singers. He never gave me solos. He never wanted to work with me and mentor me. And so I ended up somehow in college as a first generation college student. And things changed like overnight. It was a sudden shift. All of a sudden, I had professors who were saying, "You have a knack for this." And I had other musicians who were in the program who were like, "Oh my God, you're so good. You're so talented." And I was thrust all of a sudden into a supportive network that wanted to build me up and give me opportunities and see me flourish and see me go places and gave me a dream that I never had. And so that's what I pursued for a very long time, tunnel visionedly. And then one day in 2021, the spirit, the universe, God, told me that I should work on a soul R&B album. And I had literally not thought of that in over a decade. It was, I didn't even sing soul and R&B. I only listened to it. I was so far removed from that part of myself, that initial seed that was in me as a child and as a youth. And I got to work. And fast forward till today, after many trials and tribulations in that journey, I released my debut album, heART Museum, in November of 2025, which this title is an extension of the heart of Atlanta, being an Atlanta native. So I know that a lot of people my age, millennials especially as you hit your 30s, your late 20s, and your mid 30s, you start to question, are you on the right journey? And me having changed trajectories and careers through my 20s, getting into my early 30s, I know that a lot of people wonder, what's next? Am I on the right path? I run across a lot of people who ask themselves, what is my purpose? What is my passion? What am I meant to do? A lot of people my age, especially if they had parents who, went through the 80s and the 90s and the crack epidemics and things of that nature, a lot of us ended up with parents who were not equipped, battling their own vices, to really give us the things that we needed in terms of vision, dreams, passions. And so on this show, we're going to really I want to dig into people's journeys, if they want to disclose their parental situations. I grew up with parents that battled substance abuse. And so that was a major journey for me, overcoming that, making sure that I broke away from certain generational curses, and cycles, and patterns that were in front of me and that I saw. And so I really want to delve into music, obviously, because that's a love of mine. But my other love, obviously, is passions and dreams. You know. So um, let's get into a little bit of that. How could you know what your passions and dreams are? I tell people all the time, if you didn't get it when you were younger, because all of us grew up with things that we want to do. When I was younger, I wanted to do dance, but I wanted to be a preacher. That was one of the first things that I actually wanted to be. And I wanted to be a singer. And so when you're younger, you see a lot of things, you try a lot of things out. I feel like it's kind of costumey at first. But I think that all of us are blessed with innate gifts, multiple gifts, all of us. And that with a little bit of pushing and fine tuning and trying things out, it's easy to find what you're meant to do. A lot of people, initially I wanted to do music at a certain point, and I met a lot of walls and roadblocks on that journey. And so a lot of people would say, well, if you ran into roadblocks, was that actually the thing you were meant to do? And so it's easy to think, because I'm being deterred, because I'm hitting resistance, this is not for me. And I think, to know if something is for you in spite of that, I think you should always remember that everything is hard in life, and and to pay attention. I made a Facebook post many years ago that said, if I could tell my younger self one thing, I would say, pay attention. Because I think life is always speaking to us, or God is always speaking to us. The Spirit is always speaking to us in multiple ways. I think I knew that music was something I should do initially because it got me a full ride into college, even though it was through the Pell Grant and assistance. But it led me to the way that things opened up for me when I got into college, let me know that it was something worth pursuing. I think if I would have went to high school, been told no, went to college, been told no, then eventually you start saying it's either not for me and completely, or it's not for me in this season. So I would say, pay attention to what's in front of you, and pay attention. Don't let resistance deter you. It's a combination of both. I would also say it's great to have community. I think finding a community that really spoke life into me, that were also great at their craft, um, around me really helped me be resilient and push forward as I navigated through life in my early 20s. You know, in your early 20s, you're told things like, I need to have a house, I need to have a car. A lot of us are ready at 18 and early 20s to break free from our family. We want independence. We're running, we're running forward. We want everything now. And I think having community around me to tell me this is what you should be doing, this is your priority, you have potential here in terms of professor mentorship, in terms of people my age was really important. So I would say also find people your age and more experienced, wise mentors, a combination of both, balance and everything to help you along the journey. I would say three, a major thing is just have a personal spiritual relationship. That's probably the most important thing. I probably should have started with that because you can't pay attention if you don't have a relationship. I think the issue with most that I find and most people that I encounter is control. And I do that as well. Everyone wants to control everything. And I think a major part of your journey through life is learning to release, to let go, and to relinquish, especially when it comes to your journey and other people's journey. Um, High school, middle school, and elementary school programs us to believe everything is systematic. 4 years here, 4 years here, a bachelor's degree is 4 years, a master's degree is 2 years, but everyone's journey looks different. And so you have to be in tuned enough spiritually to know that my path, I'm walking my path successfully. My path is unraveling the way that it should unravel, and that I'm heading to my destination. Me putting over a decade into opera music, logically, I would think that it would be foolish to abandon that and jump over to soul and R&B. I mean, logically, it is, to me, at least. I was getting contracts in opera. I went on a tour in 2024 and made a lot of money, the most money I've ever made musically from a gig. But instead of controlling my narrative, when the spirit told me to work the universe, God, whatever you call it, or him, they told me to transition. I know from experience that it's better to listen instead of trying to control, which is what I think resistance from our side usually is. And with me listening and paying attention, I realized that things were just opening up for me. In 2022, when I transitioned over to start working on my album and went to get my master's degree, the people I met just came easily. Though learning to songwrite was difficult, everything is difficult, right? Has difficulty in it. The way I met certain collaborators, the way I met people who were recording the music for almost free, the way I stepped into courses that I knew nothing about and they greatly benefited me or found mentors. Just paying attention to those things really lets you know that you can trust, and I guess people call that faith, but if you pay attention to how things unfold for you, the places you find yourself, the people you meet, all of those things let you know that you're on the right path and should build your confidence in relinquishing and trusting. So I mean, I feel like I put a number of things in that number three, spiritual connection and faith, but I feel like they're one and the same. Like relationship and faith, I feel like are one and the same. Because to have a good relationship in anything, trust is one of the major foundations, the major cornerstones of that. So yeah, so I feel like I said, journey, we're going to talk about in terms of musically, we're going to talk about things like the Grammys. I'm going to let you know about PROs like BMI. We're going to talk about what a PRO is, BMI, ASCAP, CSAC. We're going to talk about sync licensing, how to get your music in TV and film. We're going to talk about contracts, musical contracts. We're going to talk about touring, how to tour. So we're going to have a number of different people on, and myself will be here to give you knowledge in a number of things. I know that especially in the new generation of artists and musicians, there's a lacking of knowledge in a lot of those areas. You know, we've all seen things about horror stories from prior, you know, with artists who sell millions of records and make no money, make no residuals, don't own their masters, don't own their publishing. And I think this would be a great platform to share some of that information musically. We'll also be diving into the music that I love and that my music stems from, Black American music. So jazz, soul, funk, R&B, gospel, and jazz fusion, you know, things that incorporate all of those things, the blues, the roots of music, of Black American music, and where it's going forward, where it came from, where it is, and where it's going in the future. I think that R&B music is currently in crisis, and I would love to speak from the roots, because I think if you want to know where something is or where it's going, you have to look at the roots and find where was the breakdown in the journey of Black American music, if there is one, you know. But that's something we can get into on the show as well. So, musical education, Black American music, and we may get into classical music a little bit. It depends. If you want to hear a lot about classical music, you can let me know. But primarily, we'll be focused on journey, the journey of things, the human experience, passions, dreams, ambitions, Black American music, and musical education. And so, yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in today to Heart of Atlanta with Travis Hall on WCEG. Don't forget that WCEG Talk Radio can be found on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, and you can check me out at Travis Hall Music everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere. Check me out and check out the music. See you next time.
Okay, Travis, please give me about 5 more minutes, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We're still live. We're still live.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yes, thank you.
So, also, we can get into some of my favorite albums. So that'll be a part of the Black American music. So every week when I come on, I'm going to have a number of albums that I'll be talking about from the greats, at least to me, like Minnie Riperton, Sarita, Stevie Wonder, Prince, Bill Withers. So when I come on every week, I'm going to have a list of albums, maybe one or two, or an album of the, maybe of the month, an album of the month to discuss. I'll be discussing the songwriting from the album, some musical notes, some stylistic highlights of this album, where this album lands in the artist's trajectory. And we'll be discussing the songwriting, musical composition, so that we can really learn, because I want to teach people to be able to study music as well. So we want to be able to study, know what we're hearing, so that when we get into the journey of Black American music, there's a more of a deeper understanding of what's going on culturally during the time period, musically during the time period, who were the A-listers, who were writing for multiple artists, where were they drawing their inspiration from? Like Stevie Wonder took jazz piano lessons, you know, so we'll get into those things. That's why he has a lot of jazz influence in his pop leaning Black American music. We'll also be getting into songwriting. I may have some songwriting workshops on the show, bringing some songwriters. There's so many possibilities. Please write in for anything you definitely want to see on the show, and I can sit down with my team and we can cultivate that and figure out how we would bring that to you. I just want this to be something that's very informational, that speaks to people, and that speaks to the things that I love. You know, like I said, music, journey, songwriting, music cultivation, and to see how we can also make R&B alive again. A lot of people say it's dying. You know, how we could keep it alive, keep pushing it, get more live instrumentation into it, if that's even an issue. If we're, instrumentally, we may already be in a great place in R&B, but just analyzing it, being able to chit chat about it with multiple people, and also getting your opinion and educating you. So I'm really excited about this show. Very grateful to be here and grateful to see where it leads.